I spent 15 years of my life being technically correct and completely alone. My name is Arthur. I'm 81 years old, and I've finally learned that being right is the loneliest victory a man can ever achieve. I lost my best friend in 1987 because I spoke a truth he wasn't ready to hear. And I've spent the rest of my life learning that honesty without timing is just damage with good intentions. We had been friends since we were 12 years old, two boys who grew up in a world that felt much simpler than the one we eventually built as men. We survived everything together, from the clumsy heartbreaks of high school to the terrifying uncertainty of starting our first real jobs. And I truly believed our bond was a permanent structure that could handle any weight I placed upon it. By the time 1987 rolled around, we were in our mid-30s, and my best friend, whom I'll call Richard, was about to make what I was convinced was the biggest mistake of his life. He was engaged to a woman who seemed determined to make him smaller, someone who isolated him from his friends and criticized the very things that made him vibrant, and everyone in our circle could see the light fading from his eyes. His family whispered about it in private, and our other friends talked behind his back at bars, but they all stayed silent because they believed it wasn't their place to interfere. I thought I was the brave one, the only person with enough integrity to tell him the hard truth to his face, but looking back now, I see that I was actually just arrogant. I believed that because something was true, it deserved to be said, and I wore my honesty like a suit of armor that protected me from the discomfort of staying silent. 2 weeks before the wedding, I sat him down and told him exactly what I saw, thinking that my directness was a gift that would set him free from a lifetime of unhappiness. I told him he was marrying her because he was afraid of being alone, not because she made him better. And I warned him that he would wake up in 5 years and realize he had lost his soul. I thought I was being a hero, a man of character who wouldn't let his brother walk into a storm without a warning, but Richard just stared at me for a long time before saying 5 words that still echo in my mind whenever the house gets too quiet. "You don't know me anymore." He walked out of that room and out of my life. And even though I was right about every single thing I predicted, I lost 15 years of a brotherhood because I prioritized my truth over his readiness. He married her anyway, and for a long time I wore my honesty like a badge of honor, telling myself that everyone else was a coward while I was the only one courageous enough to be real. I spent my 40s and 50s building my own life, chasing a career and maintaining a house that I thought defined my success. But I was carrying a heavy stone in my suitcase that I didn't even know was there. I was a victim of that lie we all believe when we're young, the one that says if we just do the right thing and stay on the path of truth, everything will eventually fall into place. I treated my days like currency to be traded for a future where I would finally be understood, but I was living 5 years ahead of myself and missing the quiet Tuesdays that were actually the best parts of my life. 5 years after that wedding, just as I had foreseen, Richard's marriage collapsed in a spectacular and painful fashion that left him financially and emotionally broken. And that was the moment my victory turned to ash. I heard about the divorce through the grapevine, and I remember sitting on my porch feeling a cold, hollow sense of satisfaction that I was right. But as the sun went down, that satisfaction turned into a devastating realization. Because I had forced the truth on him too early. I had made him defend the very mistake he was already doubting, and I had effectively removed myself from being the one person who could have helped him pick up the pieces. I had been right about the outcome, but I was tragically wrong about the timing, and I learned that truth without empathy is often just a form of cruelty. I had chosen my truth over his journey, and while he was drowning in the fallout of his choices, I was standing on the shore with my arms crossed, technically correct and entirely useless to the person I loved most. It took 15 years before we spoke again. 15 years of silence that could never be recovered, and when we finally sat across from each other in our 50s, the gray in our hair reminded us both of the time we'd wasted. Richard told me that he wasn't ready to hear the truth back then, and that by forcing him to choose between my observation and his decision, I had forced him to choose his decision just to keep his dignity. That was when I finally understood that truth has a readiness requirement, and that people can only receive a hard reality when they have built internal strength to integrate it into their own lives. If you deliver it too early, you aren't helping them. You are just venting your own frustrations or trying to feel superior by being the one who knows better. I had treated honesty like a gift I was generously giving him, but actually I was dropping a bomb he wasn't equipped to defuse, and all I did was destroy the ground we both stood on. I spent the better part of my later years realizing that being helpful is far more important than being right, and that some truths need the slow, patient passage of time to become useful. I've watched so many people destroy relationships in the name of just being honest, using their words as weapons while hiding behind a mask of integrity. But at 81, I can tell you that real integrity isn't just about speaking the truth in the dark. It's about having the love to hold that truth until the other person is ready to hold it with you. I wasted so much energy in my middle years fighting things I couldn't change and trying to control the lives of the people around me because I thought my anxiety for them was a form of caring. It wasn't caring. It was a lack of trust in their own ability to survive their mistakes and find their own way back to the light. Richard and I rebuilt our friendship, but it was never the same as it was before the break, because you can't just stitch 15 years of missing memories back together like a torn shirt. We missed the weddings of each other's children, the funerals of our parents, and the small, beautiful nothings that make up a long life. We are both 81 now, and we spend a lot of time in the quiet, and while there is peace in our reconciliation, there is also the ghost of the men we were in 1987. I look at my hands now and I realize they are empty, and that is okay, because what remains at the end isn't the trophy on the shelf or the records of who won the most arguments. What remains is the love you gave and the kindness you showed, and the realization that being right is a very lonely victory to bring with you into the winter of your life. I see so many of you running today, convinced that you have to fix everyone around you and speak every truth the moment it enters your mind. You think that your honesty is your power, but I'm telling you that your presence is your actual strength. If you are holding a hard truth for someone you love right now, I want you to ask yourself if you are speaking because they need to hear it or because you just need to say it. Ask yourself if your words will heal or if they will just leave a scar that takes 15 years to fade. Because in the end, the person you have to face in the mirror every morning isn't the person who won the debate. It's the person who chose peace and stayed present when the world was messy. I sit on my porch now and I watch the world move on without me, and I see that I am just one stitch in a very long tapestry. My job now isn't to lead the parade or to be the judge of everyone else's path. It's just to be a witness to the cycle continuing. There is immense freedom in letting go of the need to be important or the need to be correct. I am 81 years old, the house is quiet, and the road is short. But I am not afraid of the dark anymore because I finally understand that the light doesn't come from being right. It comes from the small, ordinary miracles of a Tuesday afternoon and the wisdom to know that sometimes the most honest thing you can do for someone you love is to stay silent, stay close, and wait for them to find their own way home. Don't wait until you're my age to realize that your heart is the only thing you can't replace once you spend it on a victory that doesn't matter. Be the light, not the monument, and make sure that when you look back at your own map, the coordinates are marked with moments of connection rather than points of pride. If you found value in this story, please subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss a single lesson. We want to hear from you. Leave a comment below and tell us one truth you spoke out that destroyed your lifelong relationship with someone. If this video resonated with you, please hit that like button and share it with someone who needs a wake-up call.